Hello everyone, welcome to DIY Ideas. Today we're doing a DIY bookmarker, and this one is really special because it uses the elastic band that is also perfect for something like a planner or any book and works with any shape and size as well. So if you want to see how you can do it, stay tuned. So this is everything that we're going to need for today, and we have a couple things here. So some fabric scissors as always, regular scissors, pins, then also our hand gauge or ruler as well, then a pen that we can mark our marks with, and I also have a fabric pen that we can wash out. Then fabric chalk if that's something you like to use for your fabric. Then some thread that matches your desired fabric, and of course here I have two different types of fabric that I would like to use. So I'm going to combine these two. Of course you can do just one or even multiple. Just make sure that it's something that's not stretchy so that it looks good and keeps its shape. Also something that's not too thick but also not too thin might be nice. Here I have some alternatives as well, so here you have all the freedom to choose what you like. And yeah, now I have some paper here. You can of course use some cardboard or an old notebook. And yeah, as I already mentioned, we're going to be using some elastic band to make this flexible. And here is just a leftover piece that I'm going to use for today. So you can use the wider or the narrower kind, that's completely up to you and what you maybe have at home or would like to use for your bookmarker. And yeah, of course, then you can of course decorate it. So we have here several different ideas, like lace or a feather. So now we have to plan the size and shape of our bookmarker. That's going to be between our fabric as well. So the elastic band is going to be between the fabric. And for that, I have here pretty thick drawing paper, and I think cardboard might work just fine, or something a little bit more stable or a little bit thicker than regular paper. And yeah, you can see here the rest of the things that I have. So here is my hand gauge that I'm going to use. So I'm going to take the width of 4.5 centimeters, which is the width right here, and then a length of 16 centimeters. And yeah, then we're later going to be working with this, but you can of course make it bigger or smaller depending on what you need. And yeah, in my case, 4.5 centimeters is exactly the width of my hand gauge, so I already know how to do that. And then I can just mark the 16 centimeter mark and have both of my sides or edges. So now that we cut this out, we can use it with our fabric and transfer it onto it so we can have our pieces. So here you can of course choose if you want to work with more fabric or just one type. If you're working with more, connect those pieces before you start working on your little pattern. I think it's going to be easier this way. You can also choose the direction of it, the size. So also we need to think about some more room for the stitches as well, so make sure to think about that as well. And then we're going to cut everything out, and that's it. Okay, so I have here my 4 pieces that I'm going to work with, and here is the end size that I want. So you see I took a little bit bigger, about 1.5 centimeters or maybe even 2 on both sides to have enough room for the stitches. And yeah, that's what I'm going to be working with. So you see here this size, and then this little section I'm going to have just on the top. And what I'm going to do is put a pretty side on pretty side to do just a regular straight stitch across this line right here. And then they're going to be connected when we turn them inside out. It's going to be a really nice and neat end result. And then we're going to cut it out in the final shape that we want to have it in. And we're going to have enough room for the stitches as well, so the size is going to fit perfectly. So for now, what we want to do is just deal with this little stitch right here. So let's take a pin and keep everything in place, do a regular straight stitch, as I said, right on the edge here, so along this line here, and then we'll have that done. So when you're working with fabric that has this checkerboard style, then make sure to align that with your other fabric. It's just gonna look a lot nicer that way than if you don't pay attention to it. So yeah, that might be a good tip to have in case you're using similar fabric as I am. So now that we have both pieces of fabric, we can separate this like this and iron over it or go over it with our nails just to keep it in place. Or you can do just one direction as well, whichever way you would prefer, but just make sure to do that because it's going to be a lot nicer in the end. You can also hide this section with something like a lace band, something like I have here, or even regular band or whatever else you prefer. That is one option. You can put it below, underneath, or below or above, or just over the whole section. That's completely up to you. But you have the freedom to do this section the way you want. If you do the stitch nicely, you can even keep the stitch itself without any decoration. Okay, so here is what I have now, and now we can put these two together and align everything. So pretty side on pretty side again, which means the pretty side or the outside is facing away from you like this, and then we can align everything. And then what we're gonna do is pin again to keep it in place. Then our cardboard piece or paper piece is going to go over this. We're going to do a little bit more for the stitches, but this is the shape that we want to have in the end. And then you can of course shorten the sides. So as I said, I'm going to cut this in this same shape, and I'm going to show you in a second what this means, but I'm going to respect of all of these sections and sizes, and just make sure to decide how long you want the top half to be and the bottom half as well. And when we cut that out, then we can put it all together and stitch it up. Okay, so now that you can see that my shape is the way I wanted to, and I pinned everything to keep it in place, I also pushed in the elastic band here on the inside. That's the way we want it. And I also have this decorative little tassel-like thing that I'm gonna put on the one end. This is optional, of course, but the elastic band is something that we're definitely gonna need so that this looks the way we want it to, and we can use it as a bookmark properly. Then we're gonna do all of the stitches here, except for this little section on the bottom so that we can turn everything inside out. So yeah, you want this basically in between two of the prettier sides that are later gonna be on the outside so that it's all in the right position later. The tassel, of course, if you want it, or any other decorative piece, should be in the same position. Okay, so now that you have everything in place, just make sure that your edges stay aligned. This might be a bit tricky if you have something a little bit bulkier. Okay, now we can pin this to keep it in place. And then we can get started with our stitch all the way around with one little opening so that we can turn everything inside out. And yeah, you can do this on the narrower sides. I think it's a lot easier that way, but it's completely up to you. And then we're gonna close that up as well later. Okay, so now that we have our stitches done and the one side, I also secured a little bit more, so with the side where the elastic band is and the tassel ending, just to make sure that it doesn't fall out or gets ripped out when I use it and take it with me. And yeah, what you can also do, depending on how much fabric you have on here, is shorten it or cut it as close to the edge as possible, as well as the corners here. That way when you turn it inside out, it will have a nicer shape. But just make sure that you don't damage the stitch, but go as close to the stitch as you can. Now that we did this, we can push our cardboard inside. That way, and if we're careful, we're not gonna rip the stitches. So just be careful, and that way your bookmarker is gonna keep its shape even more nicely. But of course, you can skip this step if maybe you want to wash it in the washing machine or something like that. In my case, I think it's going to be okay this way, so I'm going to close this up after I push it in. Okay, so now we need to measure how long we want our band to be. And for that, I'm just taking a book, or in this case, it's not a book, it's a notebook, but something as an example, what you usually use. And then we're going to measure it accordingly. Of course, the elastic band is flexible, so you're definitely going to be able to use it with a little bit smaller and a little bit larger books and notebooks, but having an approximate size helps so that it doesn't slip off or gets too tight on there. So yeah, you basically can choose however tight you want this to be. Make sure that it's not too tight so it doesn't damage the book, but also not too loose and so that it slips off. And what we're going to do is mark our position then, and then we can get on to the final step. Okay, so now I have the band and I shortened it to the little mark that I had on here. And now what I want to do is just push this to the inside so that it's not in the way. So we're not going to go and sew through or over the cardboard. But what we are going to do is kind of use it as a guide and push these edges a little bit to the inside. It might take a minute or two, but it's definitely going to be worth it in the end because it's going to yield a much neater result. And then what we're going to do is push the band to the inside. We're going to pin it up, and then we can do a stitch over across that side. There we go. So pin here and then stitch it up here. Okay, so here is the finished bookmark, and I hope you guys like the way this looks. I'm pretty satisfied with it. And yeah, there's a lot of room to play with here. You can definitely do your own style, your own shape and size, and I think it's really practical to take with you as well and keep reusing it for different notebooks, different books, different things that you use. So I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to let me know by shooting a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to my channel, and if you do, make sure to not forget the notification bell, because then you'll get notified every time there's a new video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next project. Until then, have a wonderful day. Bye!